Moses, my servant, by Brother Harry Tennant. Chapter 7, Rebellion. The rebels were turned back into the wilderness. This was to be their home and their graveyard. They would not enter the rest promised to the people of God. Their restlessness would be a mark of their failure to walk with God. Moses would look with pity and dismay upon a generation doomed to die in transit. No doubt it was about this time that his meditations were set down. We see in the 19th and 91st Psalms the intertwining of the dark thread of Israel's falling short and the golden thread of the personal faith of Moses. Lord, Thou hast been our dwelling place in all generations. Moses dwelt with God, whether he walked in Pharaoh's court or kept sheep in Midian, or travelled through the great and terrible wilderness. And God tabernacled over Moses. Because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. The people had been conscious only of being homeless, defenceless, and of leading a precarious existence. Their faith was scarcely living. Moses dwelt in sweet confidence, independent of the place and time, always aware of the presence and mercy of God. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. Around him were a people being shepherded to death, following the way that leads to destruction. They had despised the word of the Lord and the counsel of his servant. The night sky did not speak to them of the promises made to Abraham, nor of the fiery cloud of God's glory. The daily manna was a mere chore and no witness that his mercies are new every morning. The running water brought no praise from their dry throats. Instead, thou carriest them away as with a flood. They are as asleep. In the morning they are like grass which groweth up. In the evening it is cut down and withereth. This must have occasioned much sorrow of heart to the man who cared for his sheep. However foolish his charges might become, yet they were his sheep, and they were lost in that weary place. Though the Lord would not strike them down by a sudden plague, they would have but one end, whether it came soon or late. They would spend their years as a tale that is told, a finished story. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness, and are dead. They sought not the bread that endures unto eternal life. For Moses this was a deep lesson. So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Every one of those remaining 37.5 years would be both a deliverance and a test of faith. For not only the rebels were held back in the wilderness, the faithful had to wait the same length of time. Joshua, Caleb, Moses, and the Levites were detained while the nation perished. This was the trial. Only those who endured unto the end would be saved. The immediate inheritance of the faithful was deferred by 30 to 40 years. It is more than interesting to notice that the 91st Psalm speaks of Christ. The Lord himself brought it to mind in his wilderness. From this he culled the comfort of the words, He shall give his angels charge over thee. And it became a temptation to presumption. And was not that the very sin of which Israel had been guilty when they went up to battle without the ark of God? Therefore the Lord Jesus looked beyond the days of his wilderness journey, beyond the hour when he would be numbered with the transgressors, to the day when the words of Moses would be fulfilled. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honour him. With long life will I satisfy him, and show him my salvation. Thus would the Lord of Moses win life and bring deliverance from the wilderness of death for God's people. Thus we who had no hope would find comfort and rest unto our souls. Meanwhile Moses returned to the task of ordering the lives of the people, both in worship and wandering. The tabernacle would survive the days of transgression and find rest in the Holy Land. It would be a token to the righteous and an assurance to the children of the new generation who were to inherit the land. Only the children of the new generation, those who have been born again, will inherit the final blessing. Amidst death in that lonely place, where the people wandered, their children were arising, and Moses addressed himself to them in continual instruction by word and ritual. But there were perverse influences at work. The rebellion of Miriam had echoed beyond the circle of Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, and the angel. There were others who were jealous of the righteous one. His family had envied him and had been rebuked. Now a greater number were to try their strength against the mouthpiece of the Lord. This time the rebels would be a section of the house of Levi, in league with some of the princes of the people. We can see the scene. Moses and Aaron were confronted by a company of men comprising Korah of the Levites, some of the Reubenites, and 250 princes, men of renown. They drew near to the two brothers. It is clear that Aaron had no part in this rebellion. He had learned his lesson and stood firm by his brother's side. But the words he heard were similar to those he and his sister had addressed against Moses some time before. Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. How cunningly men can turn the truth upside down. It was true that Moses and Aaron were above the congregation, but they had not lifted up themselves. Moses was called of God, and Aaron was separated to the priesthood by divine command. When Moses had been accused by his sister and brother, the divine record had noted, Now the man Moses was very weak, above all men that were upon the face of the earth. Such was the servant in the eyes of his master. How could he face this new and threatening situation? This was an assault upon the priesthood and upon the office of mediator. The Lord's prerogative was being called in question. If the people were in any way holy, and their recent behaviour had been anything but that, it was for one reason only. They were the Lord's possession. Their holiness, even had it been spotless, would have been derived from God, and not from any right or privilege which came of themselves. Their whole means of approach to God was through the priesthood and by the appointed sacrifices and offerings. And all these were chosen and commanded by God. The presumption of Korah and his company was the folly of Cain and all his kind, and the names of Korah and Cain are linked in the list of corrupt and perverse men in the book of Jude. What, then, could Moses do? He was the last man to seek to defend himself, and certainly had no desire to lord it above his fellow Israelites. Moses moved towards the rebels, and as he had done before when the whole nation had murmured against him, fell down at their feet. Now was their opportunity to take him or to end his life. But no one moved. Moses raised himself and spoke. Even tomorrow the Lord will show you who are his, and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him whom he hath chosen will he cause to come near unto him. The fateful word had been used. Tomorrow. The very word which Moses had spoken against the obdurate Pharaoh. The word which had sent fear into the hearts of the servants of that monarch. Korah received his instructions from Moses, instructions he could scarcely refuse, since he believed himself and his brethren to be equal to any priest which the Lord had chosen. He was to appear on the following morning with all his company, censers in hand, fire and incense therein, ready to do office before the Lord. They returned to their tents with Moses' words ringing in their ears. Hear, I pray you, ye sons of Levi, seemeth it but a small thing unto you that the God of Israel hath separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself, and to seek you the priesthood also? They were Levites, but the priesthood belonged by divine appointment to the house of Aaron. Korah should be satisfied with his privilege as a Levite, and not to meddle in the affairs of the house of Aaron in the house of God. Moses then sent word for the Reubenites to appear before him. But they kept their distance, and sent a message to Moses which spoke volumes concerning their resentment and dissatisfaction. Is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of a land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in this wilderness? But thou must needs make thyself altogether a prince over us? Consider the gall in these words. They echoed the rebuke given by Moses to Korah by taking up the phrase, seemeth it but a small thing unto you. But more bitter than that, and a mocking at God himself, were the words, a land that floweth with milk and honey, but used about Egypt. This was rebellion indeed. Moses was angry, and left them in his wrath. He was stung even to telling the Lord that he had not taken one ass from them, neither have I hurt one of them. The morrow dawned. All the people were roused by Korah and his company, and brought to the door of the tabernacle. 250 censers sent up their clouds of incense like smouldering fires from the hearts of hate and envy. Aaron was ready with his censer. All eyes looked for Moses, but they were soon taken by another sign. The glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud, and all knew that the Lord had come to judge. There can be little doubt that the people trembled, but the words of the Lord were more severe than even Moses had expected. Separate yourselves, Moses and Aaron, from this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. In an instant Moses and Aaron were upon their faces before God. The mediator and the priest sought to make atonement by pleading on behalf of their enemies. O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? This was a kindly understatement. Korah was the one man who had sinned, but he had many friends and accomplices. He was the leprous spot on his side of the tabernacle, whose poison had reached over into the tents of his neighbours, as Blunt has pointed out in his undesigned scriptural coincidences. The tents of Korah and Reuben are adjacent according to the order of pitching camp as given in the book of Numbers. The prayer of Moses and Aaron stayed the immediate outpouring of wrath upon the whole nation. It now remained to execute the minimum judgment. The people were commanded to stand well clear of Korah and his compact company with their glowing censers. Similarly, the nation was instructed to withdraw themselves in every way from the tents of Dathan and Abiram. This they did, but Dathan and Abiram stood with their families at the doors of their tents, eyeing Moses. Then, in the silence of expectation and apprehension, Moses said, "If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then the Lord hath not sent me." The words had scarcely ended when the ground opened her mouth and consumed the tents of the rebels of Reuben, leaving nothing behind. It was the work of a moment, and Israel were terror-stricken, running hither and thither, afraid lest the earth should devour them in like manner. Meanwhile the fire of God smote the 250 with a dreadful burning, and they learned all too late that our God is a consuming fire. Thus the rebellion was rent asunder, and Israel ran trembling to their tents. The description used by the spirit of the group of rebels is the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Did they have their own separate tent in which they intended to worship? We cannot be certain, even though the idea is a tempting one. Obviously their real sin was that they envied Moses also in the camp, and Aaron the saint of the Lord. The brazen censers of the 250 had survived the Holocaust. These were the symbol of their wickedness, all that remained of the vessels of prayers which never rose to the Most High, but became an offence in his nostrils. Moses gave command concerning the censers. Eleazar, the son who would succeed Aaron, and therefore the one whose office was threatened by the upstarts, took the 250 vessels of dishonour and arranged, according to the word of the Lord, that they should be made into broad plates for the sides of the altar, a memorial unto the children of Israel, that no stranger which is not of the seed of Aaron come near to offer incense before the Lord. Every priest would see himself reflected in those side plates. Every sinner can see himself reflected from afar. The sinner is the stranger, and the priest his means of drawing nigh. There is no other way. Jesus offers at the altar, and by him the strangers among the Gentiles have access to God. But the events of the day had not brought Israel any nearer to God. If anything, they were further away. By that strange perverseness of which human nature is capable, Israel came forth on the morrow and accused Moses, though it had been obvious to all that work had not been his of killing the people of the Lord. The words of Korah had lodged in their hearts, and had not been purged by the works of God and by the prayers of Moses and Aaron. Once again the nation came forth as one man, and voiced their complaints against the two brothers. No answering word was spoken. Instead, the pillar of cloud glowed red with the anger of God, and once more the threat of yesterday sounded ominously loud. "Get you up from among the congregation, that I may consume them in a moment." Moses and Aaron fell upon their faces in intercession, but the blow had been struck. Already the plague was moving with the swiftness of a stroke among the people. With sudden clarity and wonderful aptness, Moses commanded Aaron to take his incense and censer amid the people. Then Aaron ran to the very spot where the plague was most fierce, and stood between the living and the dead. At the command of Moses, he who was the priest placed his body in prayer in the path of the plague, and made an atonement for the people. 14,000 people had died before Aaron performed his work and returned to the door of the tabernacle. This vivid drama of life and death is no more awful than the work of Christ himself. He stayed the plague by his own body, and in his own prayers made the atoning intercession. It is in the spirit of the awareness of such a deliverance that Paul says, "If one died for all, then we're all dead." How true that is! No man could stay the plague but the anointed of God, and he at dreadful cost to himself. Himself bare our infirmities has a deeper meaning than taking upon him the earthly physical sufferings of those who were healed in Palestine. He who was free from the plague of sin was taken by death, and through it mastered the plague, and became the living atonement for the people of God. Israel were chastened. They offered no praise, and there is no recorded word of thankfulness. Aaron, against whom they had spoken, had become their deliverer. His heroic self-offering, for the plague was terribly near to him, brought no response from those who were saved from certain death. But there was a response. The Lord spake on his behalf.
If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment below and let us know what you thought. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching, and remember to come back soon.